Hey everybody, it's Katie with Embody Daily, and I wanted to make a video to give you all an update about my life now that I have a little over a year of no alcohol under my belt thanks to the Sinclair Method. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to talk about today. I know I just wanted to make this video and give an update while I'm at the year mark or so of sober from alcohol. So I'll just see what comes up. I have a general idea of what I want to talk about, just kind of what this past year has been like, and in general the past 2 years since I started on the Sinclair Method. Things I've learned, things that have been challenging, things that have been really rewarding, and just how things are different now, because things are so different in my life now from where they were when I started this journey 2 years ago. So if you're new to my channel, I make a lot of videos about the Sinclair Method, which is a medication-assisted treatment option for overcoming alcohol addiction. And you essentially take a medication in combination with drinking that blocks pleasure from alcohol, and over time you're able to unlearn the dependence on alcohol. And I started this for myself a little over 2 years ago, and I went from a daily heavy kind of bottle of wine a night and weekend binge drinker, that was where I was starting 2 years ago, to someone who over the course of the year I was drinking more moderately and then more lightly, and then at the year mark or so I gave up alcohol just because it was no longer giving me any pleasure anymore. It was making me feel down and not great when I was drinking, and so I decided to give up alcohol thanks to this method. And that was a year ago, and I will say it was really quite easy to give up the alcohol because this method, the way it works with the medication treatment, is it blocks the pleasure from alcohol. And so over time, it's a gradual process. It takes time. You kind of learn to not like alcohol anymore. You're getting less and less pleasure from it. And so by the time I stopped drinking, I was ultimately like repulsed from alcohol. And like I said, the drinking experience wasn't fun. I wasn't getting any pleasure. And so it was pretty easy to just say, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm no longer triggered by alcohol. You know, like I can be at a bar, I can have wine right next to me, I can have alcohol in the house, and I just have zero desire to drink. It's as if like that memory of me as a drinker has just kind of been erased from my brain. It feels like magic, honestly. And I kind of equate it to like, you know, I've never been a smoker or done any hard drugs or anything, so it's like not something I even think about. And when I'm around someone smoking, it's not like I want a cigarette. And so that's what this method has done for me. It's basically freed me from the grips of alcohol, because you know what was so different before, because I struggled with alcohol throughout my entire 20s, and I tried to quit drinking dozens of times. And each time I would just have this internal conflict inside where I'd be resisting cravings, I'd be avoiding situations and people that were going to trigger me. I'd see an ad for alcohol or a movie and I would just immediately want to drink. And it was, you know, even though I was sober on the outside, I was still very much having this internal conflict of wanting alcohol and resisting alcohol, that ultimately I would give in to alcohol and drink again. And this method of taking the medication treatment just totally undid all of that. And it made choosing to go sober really easily. And I feel trigger proof in a way, or like I don't feel like I'm ever going to relapse again. And so that is very, very freeing for anybody who has struggled with alcohol and tried to go sober through white knuckling it. You know how hard it can be. And for anyone who has achieved sobriety that way, I just have ultimate respect for those people, because I was never able to do that. But I was able to get sober with the Sinclair Method, and I am a huge advocate for this method because it's so effective for most people. So just to kind of give more of an update of what this past year has been like being alcohol free. So I mentioned it was really easy for me to give up alcohol, but that doesn't mean it's just been this, you know, easy, perfect journey from there. What I found, and I think this happens with a lot of people, is, you know, after I'd been on the medication treatment for a little while and I was drinking a lot less, all of these emotions and memories and thoughts and things really started to surface that I really needed to heal, because I had been numbing out with alcohol for the past 10 years and not really feeling these emotions. I developed a really heavy drinking habit in my early 20s, and so I feel like when that started, a lot of my development was kind of stunted. A lot of emotions that I needed to feel, I was just using alcohol to numb out on. So it was really hard for me to feel emotions like anger and sadness and guilt and fear. And, anytime I would feel a hard emotion or be going through something hard, I would always lean on alcohol to drink. And so as I started to get more sober with the Sinclair Method, these things really started to come to the surface. I was facing a lot of insecurities that I've had my whole life, just kind of silly insecurities, but that were really deeply ingrained in me. Really getting more comfortable with feeling anger and being okay with feeling anger and finding ways to express it in a constructive way. Learning how to set boundaries with myself, because when I was drinking a lot for the decade or so that I was a real pushover, because alcohol makes you inherently insecure. When you abuse alcohol, it just strips away so much of your worth, because it totally disconnects you from yourself and numbs you out from your truth and yourself and your emotions and your experience. And of course, that's why a lot of people use it, because you can just numb out all these hard things. But that just made me feel like somebody who I really didn't know who I was. And so I was really insecure, and I would approach life from a really insecure place. So I always allowed people to kind of push me around. I would be in environments where I'd be taken advantage of. I wouldn't really speak my truth. I didn't even know what my truth was. And so it was, even though I was approaching like my 30s, I was very much kind of underdeveloped in some of these ways where I was kind of operating in this insecure type of place, from this insecure state of mind, and just not feeling confident and at peace with who I am. And so that is a huge thing that has come from this sobriety journey, and it has not been easy. It's probably been one of the most emotional years of my life. Like, I cry all of the time now. I feel things so deeply because I'm totally sober. Like, the hardest intoxicant I use now, if you can call it an intoxicant, is coffee. And so I feel everything. And that's been both a huge blessing and also a challenge, because being able to be with emotions and not numb out and escape, certainly I can still numb out with food or social media or movies or just other ways that people find ways to distract themselves. You really have to, or I should say, I've really had to learn to be with myself through these tough emotions. And that means I have put my self-care game into like high gear. And that is something I take as a priority on a daily basis, is taking care of myself. And self-care to me, it's not just about, oh, I had a hard day, I'm going to take a bath and relax tonight. I think that's definitely a part of it. But what I've learned for myself, what self-care has been for me and why it's been crucial to my sobriety journey and healing journey, it's allowed me to have this ability to start to respect myself. And on a moment-to-moment basis, to constantly be checking in with myself to see what I need, what I want, what I don't want. Am I comfortable? Am I hungry? Am I tired? Am I taking good care of myself? All of these things, because I was so neglecting my health and well-being when I was dependent on alcohol. I would abuse my body with alcohol, and then I would try to go to the gym to burn off the calories, and then try to eat really in a restrictive way to compensate for all the alcohol I was drinking. So it was this really messed up way that I was treating myself. And so what's happened with getting sober and really going through this journey and learning how to feel these emotions and being with myself and taking amazing care of myself is I now have the muscle memory, the strength to be able to cope with tough emotions and cope with anger and recognize when it's coming on and know what I need to do to take care of myself. And it's in a moment-to-moment basis. And what that has done for me is I've essentially been there for myself, like for the first time in my life. And that has been the most beautiful experience I've ever had in my life, to really be there for myself. Because I think when I was using alcohol so much before to really numb out and escape things, I was constantly abandoning myself and disconnecting from myself. And so like the little girl in me felt just very uncared for. And I think at a like visceral level, I was having a lot of anxiety and depression and just numbing it with alcohol and not really getting to the root of things. And so now that I take so much better care of myself, it's like I know my needs, I know my wants, I'm there for myself. I can more easily set boundaries with people that are not respecting me. And I take care of myself first so that I can be there for the people and things and commitments that I have in my life. And that is so reversed from what it was when I was drinking alcohol. I was putting everybody and everything else first and then depleting myself and using alcohol at the end of the day just to numb out because I was feeling so depleted and exhausted and hating myself. And so it's totally opposite now, where I am with myself moment to moment, and it's by no means easy. Oh my God, I'm learning this just like everybody else, and there are hard days and weeks and times when I screw up and when I lose it and I can't contain my emotions, all of these things that come with this type of healing journey. But I feel like I know myself so much more. Like I know my operating system so much more, that I know what to do when something isn't right, as opposed to just leaning on a substance to numb out, to have an immediate gratification to escape the pain. And so that's been a really beautiful experience and part of this journey as well. Another thing that has been really, I guess, surprising in some way is, before the Sinclair Method, when I would try to get sober, I would always view sobriety as boring, and like looking at people who were on a sober life, it's like, oh my God, what a miserable way to live. But sobriety has actually been like the most joyful, fulfilling, empowering, incredible experience of my life. Like I have days where I can liken it to like when I was a kid at Christmas and just felt like it couldn't get any better than this. Like that has been the rewards that have come from sobriety. And not to say that that's every day. And I think a part of me kind of idealized sobriety because, when you're drinking a lot and you have a couple of days without alcohol, you just feel amazing. Like, oh my God, because the contrast to being in like a drunken hungover state as opposed to clear and not hungover, it's just amazing. And so I think I'm, in some sense, idealized sobriety, that it would just be this like rainbows and butterflies experience. And I was a little kind of, wasn't aware how much I was using alcohol to numb out as well. So a lot of stuff had to come to the surface for me to kind of go through and heal and process. And things are always still coming up, emotions. I think it's just a lifelong journey. But the reward that has come from just connecting to myself and getting to know myself and be more sensitized to my environment. I appreciate things so much more now, and life just feels so much more magical because I'm not desensitized. I'm not totally numbed out on alcohol. I'm not constantly thinking about the next drink or in this mind game of what alcohol does to you. It's a trap that just traps you in your mind because when you're addicted to alcohol, it essentially hijacks your brain, and on a neurological level, you become wired to crave this substance because you are equating it to your survival. So it takes the hierarchy in your brain for what you need to survive. And so as I reflect on my experience being addicted to alcohol and why I needed it at every social situation and every day and every event, and when I didn't have it, I felt like something was missing. It's because I was literally equating it to my survival. And for me to do anything else or get pleasure in any other way in my life, alcohol had to be there because it was at the top of the hierarchy. And that's another thing too. Like, again, going back to kind of perceiving that sobriety would be boring. I think alcohol numbs us out so much. And in my experience, I was so numb that simple things in life, like you hear people talk about the simple joys, and I was like, oh, that's bullshit. Like, that's so cheesy. Like, simple joys, whatever. But like, I can cry at the smell of a flower, and like, I'm someone who cries a lot anyway, but like, I am so moved now by birds, by nature, by beautiful moments in movies or in life that I'm so sensitive to my environment, and it makes me feel so connected to life and to myself and to my emotions and to my whole experience. And that feeling, again, whether it's going through a dark time and really feeling anger and processing that and letting it flow through my body and understand what the lesson is, or if it's feeling so much joy because it's like Saturday morning and I'm reading my favorite book and have my favorite tea, like, oh, my heart is like singing right now. I just love that. Those simple joys, you really start to feel the appreciation of those simple joys. And again, equating it to like the most joy you ever experienced as a kid. You know, you get your new bike or your best friend's coming over or something. Like I have those moments so much more frequently now that it brings so much joy to my life. And even though I'm not numbing out on the challenging emotions, what's happened through this 2-year process essentially is I've built up the muscle, because as humans, we're wired to deal with these tough emotions. Like, we're emotional beings. We have this wave that we ride of emotions from highs to lows. It's just part of the human experience, and we're naturally able to cope with these things. And so for me, it was about relearning how to cope with those and knowing when to pay attention to my body and say, oh, I'm starting to feel some anxiety come on. What am I going to go do? And I have all of these things I do to really take care of myself now, and ways that are really healing and not just numbing. And what happens for me too is when I go through these tough emotions with anxiety or bouts of depression or anger or memories that surface from the past that are really hard to deal with, is once I've gone through that experience, and it's usually, temporary, it's a day or a few hours or a couple days, there's always insight at the end of it. When I'm clear enough to process it and be in tune, do whatever I need to do to take care of myself, there's always insight or realization that comes from that. And that just further deepens my experience of getting to know myself, being more comfortable with myself, and being more comfortable in my own skin. And that, for me, it's like the gift of life. It's like the most meaningful thing we can do, to know thyself, to get to know thyself, so that you can ground into who you are and be a beacon of light for others, to be what you're here to be for others and for yourself in this lifetime. And so it's been an incredibly healing and enriching journey in that sense. When you can really ground into who you are, and what makes you tick, what you like, what you don't like, the people that are good for you and not, and you begin to curate your life in a way that's fit for you because you respect yourself enough, you're grounded in yourself, you're strong enough. It's like life just unfolds around you. It's kind of like if you have been working outside in the cold all day and you have a hot bath waiting for you. Like, the moment you seek into that hot bath, it's like, it just is like the greatest release and experience in life. And I wouldn't want to take it back. I wouldn't go back to drinking for anything. And I reflect now on how much I abused myself during that time, because I was addicted to alcohol, because the substance, as Claudia Christian says, it hijacked my brain. It was controlling my life. And so I was living on a very mental level and abusing my body and mind and emotions and heart and spirit in the process, just because I was wired to crave it. It's like, we need water to survive. It's like, we're going to find water if we don't have it. If we go a time without it, like, that's all we're going to think about. And so that's kind of what alcohol was for me, and it was controlling my life. And so to have the freedom from that, I'm so much more embodied in myself, meaning I'm so much more in tune with my intuition. I can trust when something doesn't feel right in my body. I know when my body feels tired or exhausted or needs rest or needs exercise. And knowing yourself in that way, it's like knowing how to, run your car, run a machine. It's just, you get to know it more and more, and it becomes like this more fluid experience of life with so much less resistance. And even in the challenging times, it's just so much more in the flow and fluid, because you're grounded in yourself and you trust yourself enough that you can get through anything, and that you're here for yourself no matter what. And so as I look back, I'm just kind of in awe of all of the things that have changed so much in my life. And it's because I've changed so much. As I said, alcohol was really kind of controlling my life and putting me in this really kind of inherently insecure place, because it was making me feel so disconnected from myself and others. And so I was operating in a way that was demonstrative of that. The people in my life, my job, my environments, the things I would do, it was very just operating from this very low vibrational place. And now, so much has changed in my life. I'm much more respectful of myself and my time, and discerning with how I spend my time, and see the preciousness of life, see how finite it is. And I can't even imagine if I was still in the place of alcohol dependence today. And just as I get further away from it, it feels like almost like it never happened, like it was a bad dream, thankfully for the Sinclair Method, and kind of getting me to this place that I am now, where I just don't even think about alcohol. And the longer it is, it's like I forget what it was even like to feel drunk or anything. Life is just so much more rich now. And it's not to say that it's easy, but the ups and downs are part of the whole experience that make this whole experience worthwhile. You see a movie that has some sort of plot to it that makes it really interesting. It's like the ups and downs of life can make it more interesting and make you more fulfilled and whole as a person. At least that's been my experience. And so, yeah, I think that's all I can say for today. Please put a comment below if you've been on your own sober journey and you have insights or things to share from your experience, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks all for watching. Okay, bye.